The unexpected inheritance. Jake Morrison stared at the holographic message floating above his desk, his coffee forgotten and growing cold. The alien script shimmered and shifted, transforming into English before his eyes. Jake Morrison of Earth, I, Ambassador Zorn of the Galactic Confederation, regret to inform you of the passing of your friend Xalax. As per Xalax's final wishes, you have been named the sole heir to his estate on Novus Prime. Your presence is required within one standard galactic month to claim your inheritance. Failure to appear will result in forfeiture. We await your arrival. Jake leaned back in his chair, his mind reeling. Xalax, his alien pen pal of the last 3 years, was dead, and he'd left Jake his entire estate. It had to be a mistake. He and Xalax had connected through the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Program, an initiative designed to foster understanding between Earth and the newly discovered alien civilizations. Their correspondence had started formally, but quickly evolved into a genuine friendship. Xalax had been fascinated by human culture, particularly Earth's music and art. In return, he'd shared insights into advanced alien technologies that had revolutionized Jake's work as an aerospace engineer. But inheritance? That seemed far beyond the scope of their friendship. Jake's fingers hovered over the holographic interface, ready to dismiss the message as an elaborate prank, but something stopped him. The authentication codes embedded in the transmission were genuine, utilizing encryption methods Xalax had shared with him, methods that were still theoretical on Earth. This was real. Jake's apartment suddenly felt too small, too confining. He stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his desk chair, and moved to the window. The Seattle skyline stretched before him, gleaming towers reaching towards a cloudy sky. It all seemed so provincial now. He thought about his life, his boring job at a struggling tech startup, his lonely apartment, his non-existent love life. What was keeping him here? Decision made, Jake turned back to his computer and began composing a reply to Ambassador Zorn. He was going to Novus Prime. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Jake liquidated his meager assets, said goodbye to the few friends he had, and underwent the battery of medical tests and inoculations required for interstellar travel. Finally, the day of departure arrived. Jake stood in the cavernous launch bay of the newly constructed Earthport, a single duffel bag containing his worldly possessions slung over his shoulder. Around him, a mix of humans and aliens bustled about, creating a cacophony of languages and scents. A sleek, silver ship dominated the center of the bay. Its organic curves and faintly glowing hull made it look more like a living creature than a vessel. This was to be Jake's home for the next month as he journeyed to Novus Prime. Last call for passengers boarding Starlight Cruiser Epsilon, bound for the galactic core worlds. A melodious voice announced over the intercom. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. As he approached the ship, a tall, willowy alien with iridescent skin intercepted him. Jake Morrison, the alien asked, its voice a pleasant trill. Jake nodded, suddenly finding his voice caught in his throat. Welcome aboard the Starlight Cruiser Epsilon. I am Liaison Officer Zira. I'll be your guide during our journey to Novus Prime. Zira's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with genuine warmth. Please follow me. As Jake followed Zira up the boarding ramp, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into another world. The ship's interior was a marvel of alien engineering. Corridors seemed to shift and realign as they walked, and Jake could swear he felt a faint pulse beneath his feet, as if the ship itself were alive. Your quarters are this way, Zira said, gesturing down a hallway that definitely hadn't been there a moment ago. We've prepared a suite suitable for human physiology. The door to Jake's quarters slid open with a soft whisper, revealing a spacious room that seemed to defy the ship's exterior dimensions. A large viewport dominated one wall, currently showing a view of Earthport and the blue-green orb of Earth beyond. This is incredible, Jake managed to say, his eyes wide as he took in the room. Zira's skin rippled in what Jake assumed was the alien equivalent of a smile. I'm glad you find it satisfactory. We'll be departing shortly. Once we're underway, I'd be happy to give you a tour of the ship and answer any questions you might have. Jake nodded, still somewhat dazed. Thank you, Zira. I'm sure I'll have plenty of questions. As Zira left, Jake moved to the viewport. He watched as the ship gracefully detached from Earthport and began to ascend. Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another blue marble suspended in the vast blackness of space. A soft chime sounded, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. "Attention passengers," a voice announced. "We are about to enter hyperspace. Please ensure all belongings are secured." Jake barely had time to grab onto a nearby handhold before the stars outside the viewport stretched into long, luminous streaks. There was a moment of disorientation, a sensation of movement without motion, and then calm. The viewport now showed a swirling psychedelic tunnel of light, the hyperspace corridor that would carry them to Novus Prime. Jake sank onto the surprisingly comfortable alien bed, his mind struggling to process everything that had happened. Just a month ago, he'd been a nobody engineer in Seattle. Now he was hurtling through hyperspace, bound for an alien world to claim an inheritance he still didn't understand. What had Salax left him? And more importantly, why? As the hyperspace corridor swirled outside his window, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this inheritance was more than just wealth or property. Salax had always hinted at greater things, at secrets that could change the course of human history. Whatever awaited him on Novus Prime, Jake was certain of one thing: his life would never be the same again. The next few days aboard the Starlight cruiser Epsilon passed in a blur of new experiences. Jake spent hours exploring the ship, marveling at technologies he could scarcely comprehend. Zira proved to be a patient guide, answering his endless questions with grace and often with amusement at his human perspective. On the 5th day of the journey, Jake found himself in the ship's observation lounge, a cavernous space with a transparent dome that offered an unobstructed view of hyperspace. The swirling prismatic energies were hypnotic, and Jake often came here to think. "Credit for your thoughts?" a melodious voice asked. Jake turned to see a humanoid alien settling into the seat next to him. Her skin was a pale lavender, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. Large, almond-shaped eyes regarded him with curiosity. "Ambassador Lyra," Jake said, recognizing her from the passenger manifest. "I didn't expect to see anyone else here at this hour." Lyra's lips curved in a smile. The mysteries of hyperspace often draw the contemplative. "You seem troubled, Jake Morrison. Perhaps sharing your burden would lighten it." Jake hesitated for a moment, then found himself pouring out the whole story: his friendship with Salax, the unexpected inheritance, and his fears about what awaited him on Novus Prime. Laura listened attentively, her expression unreadable. When Jake finished, she was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the hyperspace corridor beyond the dome. "Salax was known to me," she said finally. "A brilliant mind, but often unconventional in his methods. If he chose you as his heir, Jake Morrison, it was not done lightly." "But why me?" Jake asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "I'm nobody special." Laura's eyes seemed to pierce right through him. "Perhaps that is precisely why. Sometimes it is those who believe themselves unremarkable who are capable of the most extraordinary things." Before Jake could respond, a sudden tremor ran through the ship. The hyperspace corridor outside flickered and distorted. "Warning," the ship's AI announced. "Unusual gravitational disturbance detected. Preparing for emergency return to normal space." Jake gripped the arms of his seat as the ship shuddered violently. The hyperspace tunnel collapsed around them in a dazzling display of light and energy. When his vision cleared, Jake found himself staring at an unfamiliar starfield. "Where are we?" he asked, a note of panic in his voice. Lyra's expression was grim. "Not where we're supposed to be, I fear." As if in response to her words, a massive shape materialized in the space before them. It was a ship, if such a term could be applied to something so vast and alien. Its surface was a chaotic swirl of colors and textures that hurt Jake's eyes to look at directly. By the cosmic accord, Lyra breathed. Avoid harvester, we must. Her words were cut off as a beam of sickly green energy lanced out from the alien vessel, enveloping the Starlight cruiser in its glow. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body, and then everything went dark. When Jake regained consciousness, he found himself in a dimly lit, cavernous space. The air was thick with an acrid, alien scent that made his eyes water. As his vision adjusted, he realized he wasn't alone. Other passengers from the Starlight cruiser, including Lyra and Zira, were scattered around the room in various states of confusion and fear. What happened? Jake asked, his voice hoarse. Where are we? Lyra's voice came from nearby, tight with tension. We've been captured by the Harvesters, a species so ancient and advanced that most consider them a myth. They travel the void between galaxies, collecting specimens and technologies. Jake's mind reeled. Specimens, you mean? Us? Before Lyra could answer, a section of the wall rippled and parted. 3 towering figures entered the room. They were vaguely humanoid, but their bodies seemed to shift and change, as if they weren't entirely solid. Where faces should have been, there were only swirling vortexes of energy. One of the harvesters approached Jake, extending a limb that morphed into something resembling a scanner. Jake felt a tingling sensation as the device passed over him. Fascinating, a voice echoed in Jake's mind. This one carries traces of Xalax's quantum imprint. Jake's heart raced. You knew, Xalax. The harvester's energy face pulsed. Knew. No. We'll know. Time is fluid for us. Xalax was a point of interest. You, Jake Morrison, are an anomaly. Before Jake could process this, alarms began blaring throughout the harvester ship. The 3 aliens turned as one, their bodies rippling with agitation. Impossible, one of them said. The quantum lock has been breached. In that moment of distraction, Jake felt something press into his hand. He looked down to see a small glowing device nestled in his palm. Lyra's voice whispered urgently in his ear. Xalax's final gift. Use it wisely. Jake didn't have time to question. Acting on instinct, he activated the device. A sphere of shimmering energy expanded around him, enveloping nearby passengers. The harvesters turned back, energy tendrils lashing out, but they passed harmlessly through the field. Run, Lyra shouted. And run they did, through twisting corridors that defied Euclidean geometry, past chambers filled with impossible technologies and creatures Jake's mind could barely comprehend. All the while, the device in Jake's hand pulsed, guiding them through the labyrinthine harvester ship. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a hangar bay. A sleek vessel sat waiting, its design familiar. It was of the same make as the Starlight cruiser. Xalax's personal ship, Lyra explained as they rushed aboard. You must have programmed it to come to your aid. As the last of the escaped prisoners boarded, the ship's engines flared to life. Jake watched in awe as the vessel navigated itself out of the harvester ship, expertly dodging energy beams and tractor fields. Once they were clear, the stars around them blurred as the ship jumped to hyperspace. Jake sagged against a bulkhead, exhaustion and adrenaline warring in his system. Lyra approached him, her eyes filled with a mixture of wonder and concern. It seems, Jake Morrison, that your inheritance is far more than any of us imagined. Xalax has placed a great responsibility on your shoulders. Jake looked down at the device in his hand, still glowing faintly. I don't understand any of this. Why me? What am I supposed to do? Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. The answers await us on Novus Prime. But know this, Xalax chose you for a reason. You may not see it yet, but you have a strength within you, a potential that could change the course of galactic history. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace towards Novus Prime, Jake stood at the viewport, lost in thought. The encounter with the harvesters had shaken him to his core, but it had also awakened something within him, a determination to uncover the truth behind Salak's legacy and to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Whatever awaited him on Novus Prime, Jake knew one thing for certain: his journey was only just beginning. Secrets of Novus Prime. The sleek vessel broke through Novus Prime's atmosphere, its iridescent hull reflecting the light of twin suns. Jake stood at the viewport, his breath catching as he took in the alien landscape below. Crystalline spires stretched towards the sky, their facets refracting sunlight into dazzling rainbows. Between these towers, lush bioluminescent forests pulsed with life, their glow visible even in the daylight. "Welcome to Novus Prime," Lyra said, her voice tinged with awe. "Even for those of us who have traveled the galaxy, this world remains a marvel." As the ship descended towards a sprawling complex that seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding forest, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. What secrets awaited him here? What burden had Salak placed on his shoulders? The landing was smooth, almost imperceptible. As the boarding ramp extended, Jake was hit by a wave of sweet alien scents. The air itself seemed to tingle against his skin, charged with an energy he couldn't quite explain. "Whoa," Jake muttered, steadying himself against the ship's hull. "Is it always like this?" Zara, who had been quiet since their escape from the harvesters, spoke up. "Novus Prime is unique in the galaxy. The entire planet is infused with quantum energies that most species can only theorize about. It's why Salak chose to make his home here." As they stepped onto the landing pad, a figure emerged from the complex to greet them. Jake's eyes widened as he took in the being before him. She was humanoid, but her skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, and what looked like circuits pulsed beneath her surface. Her eyes, a swirling vortex of data, fixed on Jake with an intensity that made him shiver. "Greetings, Jake Morrison of Earth," the being said, her voice a harmonious blend of tones. "I am HFY, Salak's artificial resonance intelligence assistant. I've been waiting for you." Jake swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. You knew I was coming." Aria's lips curved in a smile that was almost, but not quite, human. Salak foresaw many possibilities. Your arrival was one he hoped for most fervently. She gestured towards the complex. "Please follow me. There is much to discuss, and time grows short." As they walked, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the structure around them. What had appeared organic from a distance revealed itself to be an intricate blend of technology and living matter. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent circuits, and Jake could have sworn he felt a faint heartbeat thrumming through the floor. Aria led them to a vast circular chamber. At its center stood a holographic projection of the galaxy, stars and nebulae swirling in breathtaking detail. "This," Aria said, "is the Nexus. From here, Salak monitored the ebb and flow of galactic events, and it is here that you, Jake, will learn the truth of your inheritance." With a wave of her hand, Aria brought up a series of complex equations and diagrams. Jake, despite his background in engineering, found himself struggling to comprehend even the basics of what he was seeing. "Salak discovered something," Aria continued, her voice taking on a grave tone. "A fundamental flaw in the fabric of our reality. The universe, Jake, is dying, faster than it should be." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Dying? How was that possible? Aria's eyes swirled with data as she explained. "The expansion of the universe is accelerating beyond all predicted models. At the current rate, heat death will occur billions of years ahead of schedule. Entire galaxies are already winking out of existence in the farthest reaches of space." Lyra stepped forward, her face pale. "By the cosmic accord, is this why the harvesters are on the move? Are they fleeing the collapse?" Aria nodded. "They are a symptom of a greater problem, but Salak believed he had found a solution." She turned to Jake, her gaze intense. "A solution that requires you, Jake Morrison." Jake's mind reeled. The fate of the universe. This was far beyond anything he had imagined. But why me? I'm nobody special." Aria's form shimmered, and suddenly Jake found himself looking at a holographic projection of Salax. The alien's features were insectoid, with multifaceted eyes and iridescent exoskeleton, yet there was an unmistakable warmth in his gaze. "Jake," Salax's voice echoed through the chamber. "If you're seeing this, then my predictions were correct. You've come to Novus Prime, despite the dangers, despite your doubts. That alone proves you are far more than you believe yourself to be." The hologram gestured, and the galactic map zoomed in on a particular sector. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I assure you, it is our only hope. The universe is a vast quantum computer, Jake, and like any computer, it can be reprogrammed." Jake's eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. "The device you left me, the one that protected us from the harvesters." Salax's hologram nodded. "A quantum key. The first step in rewriting the cosmic code. But it's not enough on its own. We need something that only humans possess, something unique in all the galaxy." "What?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Imagination," Salax said simply. "The ability to conceive of realities that do not yet exist, to dream the impossible and make it real. This, combined with the quantum technologies I've developed, could allow us to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics, to give the universe a new lease on life." The hologram flickered, Salax's expression growing urgent. "But there are those who would stop us, Jake. The Cosmic Concordat believes the universe's death is a natural, inevitable process. They will do anything to prevent our interference. And the harvesters, they seek to use my research for their own ends, to survive the death of this reality by escaping to another." Jake's head spun with the implications. "So what do we do? How do we even begin to tackle something like this?" Salax's hologram smiled. "We start small, Jake. We start with Novus Prime. This planet is a testing ground, a microcosm of the larger universe. Master its quantum nature, and you'll have the keys to reshaping reality itself." The hologram began to fade. "Trust in yourself, Jake. Trust in the team I've gathered. And above all, never stop imagining a better future. The universe is counting on you." As Salax's image disappeared, Jake found himself the center of attention. Lyra, Zira, and Aia all looked to him, their expressions a mixture of hope and apprehension. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of an entire universe settling onto his shoulders. It was terrifying, overwhelming, and yet, a part of him thrilled at the challenge. This was why he'd become an engineer in the first place, to solve impossible problems, to push the boundaries of what was possible. "All right," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Where do we start?" Aria's lips curved in a smile. "We start with your training, Jake. Novus Prime holds many secrets, and you have much to learn. Are you ready?" Jake nodded, a determined glint in his eye. "Let's save the universe." As Jake followed Aoya deeper into the complex, his mind raced with possibilities. He didn't fully understand the task ahead, but he knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The fate of all reality rested in his hands, and he was determined not to let Salax or the universe down. The adventure was just beginning, and Jake Morrison, the unlikely hero from Earth, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The cosmos itself held its breath, waiting to see what this human, armed with nothing but imagination and determination, could accomplish. Quantum awakening. The alien sun cast a purple glow across the crystalline landscape of Novus Prime as Jake Morrison stood atop a floating platform, his eyes closed in concentration. Sweat beaded on his brow as he focused on the swirling energies around him. "Feel the quantum threads, Jake," Aria's voice echoed in his mind. "They are the fabric of reality itself. Reach out and grasp them." Jake's fingers twitched, and suddenly, the air before him shimmered. A small sphere of distorted space appeared, wobbling unstably. I think I've got it," Jake exclaimed, his eyes snapping open. The sphere promptly collapsed, sending a ripple of energy that nearly knocked Jake off his feet. Aria's holographic form flickered into existence beside him, her expression a mixture of amusement and encouragement. "Better," she said. "You're learning to touch the quantum foam. But manipulating it requires more than just concentration. You must imagine the reality you wish to create." Jake nodded, catching his breath. It had been 3 months since he'd arrived on Novus Prime, and every day brought new wonders and challenges. The training HFY had devised was unlike anything he could have imagined, part physics, part meditation, and part sheer fantasy. As Jake prepared for another attempt, a familiar voice called out from below. "Jake, how are ya? We've got a situation." Lyra stood at the base of the floating platform, her lavender skin shimmering with urgency. Jake and HFY descended quickly, concern etched on their faces. "What's wrong?" Jake asked as soon as his feet touched the ground. Lyra's multifaceted eyes darted nervously. "We've detected a harvester ship entering the system. They somehow tracked us here." Jake's blood ran cold. The memory of their last encounter with the harvesters was still fresh in his mind. Aria's form flickered as she processed the information. "This is troubling. Novus Prime's defenses should have prevented their detection. They must have adapted their technology." "What do we do?" Jake asked, his hand instinctively moving to the quantum key device he now wore around his neck. Aria's eyes swirled with calculations. "We must accelerate your training, Jake. The harvesters cannot be allowed to obtain Salax's research. The fate of the universe hangs in the balance." As if on cue, the sky above them darkened. The massive form of a harvester ship broke through the clouds, its chaotic surface writhing with unknowable energies. "To the Nexus," HFY commanded. "Quickly." They raced through the twisting corridors of Salax's complex, the very walls seeming to pulse with anxiety. As they entered the Nexus chamber, Jake gasped. The holographic display of the galaxy was in chaos, entire sectors blinking out of existence. "The universal decay is accelerating," HFY explained grimly. "The harvester's presence is exacerbating the problem. Their technology is like a cancer, consuming reality itself." Jake's mind raced. "Then we need to stop them. But how? I'm nowhere near ready to face them." Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You're more ready than you know, Jake. Remember what Salax said, your human imagination is the key." A tremor shook the complex as the harvester ship began its assault on Novus Prime's defenses. Aria's form flickered urgently. "Jake, listen carefully. The quantum key Salax gave you is more than just a defensive tool. It's a conduit for your will. Combined with the energies of Novus Prime, it can reshape reality on a local scale." Jake clutched the device, feeling its warmth pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. "But how do I use it? I barely understand how it works." Aria's eyes locked onto his. "You don't need to understand it, Jake. You need to imagine. Picture the outcome you desire, and the quantum key will make it real." Another tremor, stronger this time. The holographic display showed the harvester ship reaching the outer defenses. Jake closed his eyes, centering himself as HFY had taught him. He thought of Earth, of the friends he'd left behind. He thought of Salax, of the trust the alien had placed in him. And he thought of the universe itself, the countless worlds and civilizations that would be snuffed out if he failed. "I won't let you down," Jake whispered. His eyes snapped open, blazing with determination. The quantum key around his neck began to glow, pulsing with incredible energy. Jake raised his hands, and the very air around him seemed to warp and bend. "What are you doing?" Lyra gasped. Jake's voice was calm, almost detached. "Imagining a better reality." Outside, the harvester ship suddenly found itself encased in a bubble of distorted space-time. Its chaotic surface writhed in confusion as it tried to break free. In the Nexus, Jake's body began to lift off the ground, surrounded by a corona of quantum energy. His voice echoed with power that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You who consume realities, who flee from the death of all things, he intoned. Your journey ends here. With a gesture, Jake caused the bubbles surrounding the harvester ship to contract. The alien vessel's surface began to crack and splinter, unable to withstand the forces being exerted upon it. Jake, HFY warned, her voice tinged with awe and fear. The energies you're channeling, they're incredibly unstable. You must be careful. But Jake was beyond hearing. His consciousness had expanded, touching the very fabric of space-time itself. He could see the quantum threads that bound reality together, and with a thought, he began to weave them anew. The harvester ship imploded, collapsing into a singularity that winked out of existence in a flash of unimaginable energy. But Jake didn't stop there. His mind reached out across the star system, across the galaxy, touching the wounds in the cosmic fabric left by the universal decay. "Jake, stop," Lyra cried out. "You'll tear reality apart." With a monumental effort, Jake pulled back, his consciousness snapping back into his body. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The quantum key around his neck pulsed once more, then went dark. Lyra and HFY rushed to his side. "Jake, are you all right?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with concern. Jake managed a weak nod. I think so. Did it work? Are they gone?" Aria's form shimmered as she processed the data. "The harvester ship has been completely obliterated, and, Jake, you've done something impossible. The universal decay in this sector has been halted, even reversed in some areas." Jake struggled to sit up, his head spinning. "I saw it all, HFY. The quantum threads, the fabric of reality. It's beautiful and terrifying." Lyra helped him to his feet. "You've taken the first step, Jake. You've proven that the universe can be reshaped, that the decay can be reversed." HFY nodded, her expression solemn. "But this is only the beginning. The cosmic concordat will have sensed what you've done. They will come for us now, determined to stop what they see as a violation of natural law." Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself. The enormity of what he'd accomplished, and what still lay ahead, was almost overwhelming. But he felt a newfound confidence, a connection to the universe itself that he'd never imagined possible. "Then we'd better be ready for them," he said, his voice gaining strength. "We've got a universe to save, and we're just getting started." As Jake looked out over the shimmering landscape of Novus Prime, he knew that his journey had only just begun. The power to reshape reality was at his fingertips, and the fate of all existence hung in the balance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever forces might stand against them, Jake Morrison, the human who dared to dream of a better universe, was ready to face them head-on. The cosmic stage was set, and the next act in this grand universal drama was about to unfold. Cosmic convergence. The Nexus chamber hummed with an otherworldly energy as Jake stood before the holographic display of the galaxy. His eyes, now flecked with quantum particles, darted across the swirling stars and nebulae. Patterns emerged that he'd never noticed before, the universe's own language, written in light and gravity. The cosmic concordat approaches. HFY's voice broke the silence, her digital form materializing beside Jake. "Their fleet has entered the outer reaches of the system." Jake nodded, his expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. "How long do we have?" "Approximately 6 Earth hours," HFY replied. "Their technology is formidable." Lyra entered the chamber, her lavender skin shimmering with nervous energy. "The evacuation of non-essential personnel is complete. Novus Prime stands ready." Jake took a deep breath, centering himself. In the months since his confrontation with the harvesters, his abilities had grown exponentially. But were they enough to face the cosmic concordat, a coalition of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations? "We can't fight them head-on," Jake mused, his mind racing. "We need to show them that reshaping reality isn't a threat, but our only hope for survival." Aria's eyes swirled with calculations. "A demonstration, perhaps." on a scale they cannot ignore. A spark of inspiration hit Jake. The void nexus, he breathed. It's perfect. Lyra's eyes widened. The void nexus. But that's just a legend, a cosmic myth. Jake shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. No, it's real. I've seen it in the quantum threads. A place where multiple realities converge, where the barriers between dimensions are thinnest. He turned to HFY. Can you locate it? HFY's form flickered as she processed the request. After a moment, a sector of the galactic map illuminated. Coordinates found. But Jake, the energy required to reach the void nexus, it's beyond anything we've attempted. We don't have a choice, Jake said firmly. It's our best chance to show the Concordat what's at stake and what's possible. As they prepared for departure, Jake couldn't help but marvel at how far he'd come. From a struggling engineer on Earth to the potential savior of the universe, the weight of responsibility was immense, but so was the thrill of discovery. Zolax's ship, now modified with technology Jake had helped develop, stood ready on the launch pad. Its sleek form hummed with quantum energy, ready to tear a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. As Jake boarded with Lyra and a projection of HFY, he felt a tremor of anticipation. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of all existence. The journey to the Void Nexus was like nothing Jake had ever experienced. The ship didn't so much travel through space as it skipped across realities, each jump bringing them closer to their destination. Through the viewports, Jake caught glimpses of alternate universes, worlds where the laws of physics were wildly different, where life had evolved in unimaginable ways. Finally, they arrived. The Void Nexus hung before them, a swirling maelstrom of cosmic energies. At its center, a pitch-black sphere seemed to devour light itself. By the eternal stars, Lyra whispered, all evident in her voice, "It's real." Jake's hands danced across the ship's controls, guided by an instinct that seemed to come from the universe itself. HFY, broadcast on all frequencies. Let the Concordat know we're here. As if on cue, space around them shimmered. A massive fleet of ships materialized, the combined might of the cosmic Concordat. Their designs were as varied as the civilizations they represented, but all radiated an aura of ancient power. A transmission crackled through the ship's communicators. "This is High Arbiter Zolax of the Cosmic Concordat. Jake Morrison of Earth, you stand accused of violating the natural order. Cease your actions immediately or face obliteration." Jake took a deep breath, then opened a channel. "High Arbiter, I understand your concerns. But what we're doing isn't a violation of nature, it's an evolution. The universe is dying, faster than it should be. We have the power to save it, to give all life a chance to flourish." "Impossible," Zolax's voice boomed. "The death of the universe is inevitable. To interfere is to risk unraveling the very fabric of reality." "Then let me show you what's possible," Jake said, his voice steady. "Watch closely." With that, Jake closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. He could feel the quantum key around his neck pulsing in sync with the energies of the Void Nexus. In his mind's eye, he saw the quantum threads that bound reality together, fraying and unraveling. But he also saw the potential for renewal, for rebirth. With a thought, Jake began to weave the threads anew, drawing power from the Void Nexus itself. Outside the ship, the fabric of space began to ripple and warp. The swirling energies of the Nexus coalesced, forming intricate patterns that mirrored the quantum threads Jake was manipulating. "Impossible," Zolax's voice whispered, all traces of authority gone. Jake pushed further, his consciousness expanding to encompass the entire sector. He could feel the decay that plagued the universe, the entropy that threatened to consume all of existence. But he could also feel the spark of life, the indomitable will to survive that united all sentient beings. With a surge of effort, Jake channeled that will, that desperate hope for survival, into the quantum threads. The Void Nexus pulsed, and a wave of energy radiated outward. As the wave passed through the sector, stars that had been on the verge of extinction flared back to life. Planets that had been rendered barren by the universal decay suddenly blossomed with new ecosystems. And in the space between, new matter coalesced, the building blocks of future worlds and civilizations. Jake opened his eyes, gasping for breath. The view outside the ship was transformed. Where once there had been a dying sector of space, there was now a vibrant, thriving cosmic neighborhood. This, Jake said, his voice carrying across all frequencies, is what we can achieve. Not just the preservation of what exists, but the creation of new possibilities. A universe reborn, with room for all life to flourish. Silence reigned for a long moment. Then, slowly, ships from the Concordat fleet began to move forward, but not to attack, to examine the miracle Jake had wrought. Zolax's voice came through once more, tinged with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. How is this possible? Jake smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. With imagination, determination, and the understanding that the universe isn't a fixed thing, it's a story we're all writing together. And this chapter doesn't have to end in darkness. As the Concordat ships swarmed around the rejuvenated sector, Jake knew that the real work was just beginning. There would be negotiations, explanations, and undoubtedly more challenges ahead. But he had done it. He had shown the galaxy that there was hope. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You did it, Jake. You've given us all a future." Jake nodded, his gaze fixed on the swirling beauty of the void nexus. "No, we did it. All of us together. And this is just the beginning." As Stalax's ship turned back towards Novus Prime, Jake felt a sense of excitement building within him. The universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers he had yet to imagine. But with his newfound abilities, his trusted companions, and the spark of human imagination, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The cosmic story was far from over. In fact, a new and thrilling chapter was just beginning. The multiversal nexus. The grand hall of the cosmic Concordat buzzed with an energy unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. Delegates from thousands of alien races filled the cavernous space, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Some floated on clouds of sentient gas, others pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and still others existed as pure energy beings. Jake stood at the center of it all, his quantum-infused eyes taking in the spectacle. Beside him, Lyra and Auria's holographic form provided silent support. The weight of countless civilizations' hopes rested on his shoulders. High Arbiter Zolax, a being of crystalline light, hovered before Jake. "Jake Morrison of Earth, you stand before the assembled might of the cosmic Concordat. Your actions at the Void Nexus have challenged our understanding of reality itself. Speak now, and let your words echo across the cosmos." Jake took a deep breath, feeling the quantum key pulse against his chest. He spoke, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Esteemed members of the Concordat, I come before you not as a conqueror or a rebel, but as a harbinger of hope. The universe as we know it is dying, consumed by a decay that defies all natural laws. But I stand here as living proof that this fate is not inevitable." He gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the assembly. It showed the rejuvenated sector near the Void Nexus, teeming with new life and possibilities. "What you see before you is not a violation of cosmic law, but an evolution of it. We stand at a crossroads, faced with a choice: accept the death of all things, or dare to imagine a universe reborn." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jake could sense the mix of hope, fear, and skepticism emanating from the assembled beings. He pressed on, his voice growing stronger. "But the power to reshape reality comes with great responsibility. That's why I propose the formation of a new body, the Multiversal Accord. A coalition dedicated not just to preserving our universe, but to exploring and safeguarding the infinite realities that exist beyond our own." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Some cried out in support, others in outrage. Zolax raised a limb of pure light, silencing the assembly. You speak of other realities, human. What proof do you have of such things? Jake smiled, a glint in his quantum-flecked eyes. I'm glad you asked, High Arbiter. AOE, if you would. Aria's holographic form expanded, enveloping the entire chamber in a dazzling display of light and energy. Suddenly, the delegates found themselves floating in a vast, swirling maelstrom of realities. Behold, Jake's voice echoed through the void, the multiversal nexus. All around them, glimpses of alternate universes flickered into existence. Worlds where the laws of physics were wildly different, realms of pure thought, dimensions of unimaginable beauty and terror. The assembled delegates gasped in collective awe. Each of these realities, Jake continued, is threatened by the same decay that plagues our own. But together, drawing upon the collective knowledge and imagination of every sentient being, we can forge a new cosmic order. One that preserves the wonders of existence across all dimensions. As the vision faded and the delegates found themselves back in the chamber, a hush fell over the assembly. Jake could sense a shift in the room's energy, from skepticism to cautious hope. Zolax's crystalline form shimmered as he processed this new information. What you propose, Jake Morrison, is beyond anything the Concordat has ever attempted. The risks are incalculable. So are the rewards, Jake countered. Imagine a cosmic network of thriving civilizations, sharing knowledge and resources across the boundaries of reality itself. We stand on the brink of a new age of exploration and discovery. A new voice rang out, deep and resonant. A massive being composed of swerving dark matter stepped forward. I am Sorvax of the Void Walkers. For eons we have traversed the spaces between realities, watching the slow death of the multiverse. We will stand with the human and his multiversal accord. One by one, other delegates voiced their support. The tide was turning. Zolax's form pulsed with an unreadable emotion. Very well. The Cosmic Concordat will put this matter to a vote. But know this, Jake Morrison, if your vision comes to pass, you'll bear the responsibility for whatever consequences may come. Jake nodded solemnly. I understand, High Arbiter, and I accept that burden. As the voting commenced, Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Lyra, her eyes shining with pride. Whatever happens next, she said softly, you've already changed the course of cosmic history. Jake smiled, his gaze drifting back to the assembled delegates. We've only just begun, Lyra. The real adventure starts now. Hours later, as the final votes were tallied, Jake stood before the Concordat once more. The chamber crackled with anticipation. Zolax's voice rang out. By the will of the assembled civilizations, the multiversal accord is hereby established. Jake Morrison of Earth, you are appointed as its first guardian. A cheer went up from the delegates, a symphony of alien voices united in hope. As Jake accepted the mantle of guardian, he felt the quantum energies within him surge. Visions of infinite possibilities danced before his eyes, new worlds to explore, ancient mysteries to unravel, and cosmic wonders beyond imagination. The universe, no, the multiverse, was entering a new age. An age of renewal, of boundless exploration, and of challenges yet unimagined. And at the center of it all stood Jake Morrison, the human whose imagination had reshaped the very fabric of reality. As he looked out at the assembled beings, Jake's voice carried the weight of destiny. Today, we take our first steps into a larger cosmos. Together, we will write the next chapter in the greatest story ever told, the story of existence itself. The multiversal accord was born, and with it, a new era of cosmic adventure was about to unfold.